It seems today that there is a growing sentiment of Afrophobia among Black Americans here in America. Afrophobia could be described as hostility, contempt, or some type of disdain for anything African or even African people. It's usually displayed in the form of disconnection, a disconnection as a result of a form of dismemberment, our disconnection and dislocation from the continent, culturally and geographically. These attitudes appear in various forms. You'll hear people say things like, "We have always been here." You'll hear people denigrating or disgracing people with various ideologies that may be African-based by referring to them as Hotepers, which the term Hetep or Hotep is an ancient Egyptian word which can be roughly translated as a way of giving peace or to be satisfied. But this term has been weaponized by contemporary Black Americans, again, as a form of Afrophobia, which is disrespectful and disgraceful. These kinds of behaviors does not help us in our current predicament of worldwide subjugation and disunity across the globe. Where do the roots of this self-hatred, the self-content of Black people denying their roots? Because ultimately that's what it is. It's an abject denial of the roots. We can trace this denial to the European enslavement of African people with the subsequent interruption of our history, of our story, of our folkways, mores, values, traditions, and customs. And as you know, without traditions, there is nothing. So we as a people have been turned inside out, outside in, and turned against ourselves, incubated in an environment of self-hate, incubated in an environment of white supremacist, racist ideologies that are embedded in the laws, the education system, the economic system, the religious system. In fact, every institution in America is butt rest or supported by white supremacy. This is a fact. And when you see a people that have been marinating, or I should say, their consciousness formed in this type of hotbed system, this incubator, there will be certain manifestations in their personality that will reveal the nature of their psychosis. This Afrophobia shows up in us in many ways, from Black on Black crime and criminality in the streets, which Dr. Amos Wilson said is nothing more than white criminality against Black people. Black on Black violence is the stepchild of this white criminality. It appears in how our entertainers may self-mutilate themselves by bleaching their skin, carving up their faces, their noses to look un-African or other than Black. This preoccupation with straight hair, particularly with the yellow color of hair that some of our sisters like to go out and purchase for large amounts of money. This Afrophobia or self-hate manifests itself in many different ways. It manifests itself through our subscription to religion. These enslaved religions that we follow all are made in the image of the enslaver. The only result, consequence can be from worshiping a God or following prophets, the deliverers of the messages from these gods, and they don't look like you, is to worship them. In Africa, Africa has the largest number of Black Christians anywhere on earth, but has the most anti-African attitudes towards traditional African culture. These facts can't be dismissed or ignored. We must understand them as they are. And we as a people must remove ourselves or try to distance ourselves from this hostility, because it's not helping our children. It's not helping us to advance our interests as a people. In fact, it's causing more division than unity. If you go back and look at certain historical currents in this country, we were proud of our Africanity. We knew who we were. There seems to be a lot of confusion today, but we knew who we were. If you go back to the year 1775, you will see that Prince Hall created what was called his African Freemason Lodge 459. Shortly after that, you had St. Philip's African Church, established in 1808. You had the African Methodist Episcopal Church in 1816. And let's not forget Africa, Ohio, a town in Ohio that was a stop on the Underground Railroad that was named for African people. But today, people will tell you that they've always been here. They consider themselves to be indigenous. There's a term called pretendians, where people pretend to be Indians, that are largely sweeping this nation. It's not only people of African descent doing this, Caucasians are doing it too. They're appropriating the history of the indigenous people. One of the ways they appropriate this history, you may see folks wearing the war bonnet or the feathered headdress. These were ceremonial icons that leaders of different ethnic groups would wear. You had to earn these. Not only that, it was a form of disrespect to wear them otherwise, but you'll see people taking photos of these ceremonial headdresses in rap videos, performing on stage. And these headdresses are not like the traditional indigenous headdresses, which were made from the plumes of eagle feathers. These are made of chicken feathers. You can buy these in any Indian prop shop or any kind of prop shop across the nation. But I digress. What is to be done about this Afrophobia? What it needs to be done is we need to be honest with ourselves. We need a total reorientation, a total reevaluation of our values, of our outlook on life. We need to understand that we must have integrity. We must have humility. We must not undo the great work that was done by those who came before us. You know, there's an African proverb that states, no matter how long a log is underwater, it will never become a crocodile. So we need to understand that we must be ourselves. In this search for truth, it can be painful, it can be hard, difficult for us to grasp, because again, we've been cultivated, our people have been cultivated, raised, socialized in the most anti-black nation on the planet, the United States of America. This white settler criminal society has created all kinds of ideas and philosophies to degrade us, to destroy our history and our sense of self-worth. Can't submit to that. As our illustrious ancestor Malcolm X once said, just because a cat has kittens in the oven, that doesn't make them biscuits. We could go on and pull from many of our ancestors who did the work, who sacrificed their lives in order to make sure we were better off. The Honorable Marcus Garvey once said that Africa for the Africans, at home and abroad. So we must understand that our ancestors knew. They knew the work that must be done, and they made those valuable contributions. As our illustrious ancestor Saunders Redding said, a people's relation to their culture is the same relation as a child to its mother's breast. We have had so many great people to do great work. And now for what? For people to come along and disrespect their contributions, their lifelong legacies, people who have put their lives on the line to ensure that we had better lives to live. I think it's inappropriate that today we act the way we do. We disregard their contributions, their hard work, their efforts by disavowing and disparaging their names, by attempting to disconnect ourselves from those legacies which sustained us. This is a travesty. This is more than disrespectful. Today, we seem to be too preoccupied with trying to prove who we aren't and what we aren't, instead of being about the work of building institutions to solve our problems. There are a lot of people who are about that work. We don't hear their voices. Their voices are being smothered out by their marginalized, illiterate group, a group of people who put most of their investments into beliefs and to things they presume to be true, not what they know or what they understand through hard work and diligent efforts of studying and digging, but what they presume to know, what they want to believe, or how they feel. This is ridiculous. We have to do better. We've done better. Our ancestors created and brought the world so many wonderful things. They made so many valuable contributions towards civilization, and we can continue to do so. But it requires sacrifice, it requires humility, it requires dignity, it requires honesty, and more importantly, it requires hard work. So let's stop the foolishness. Let's get back to being the best of what we can be for the sake of our children and their futures. Thank you, and until the next time, peace.